This is the IOA Podcast, a space for truth, tenderness, and becoming whole, one breath at a time. Hello, everyone. I am super excited about this episode. We are talking about healing without perfection and letting go of the performance of wellness. So welcome back, everyone, to the IOA Podcast. And I am your host, Dr. Malaika. And this is a space where we heal loudly and we live softly. If you're new here, come on in, find a seat. There's room for you at our table. And if you've been walking through this season and all this the season before with me week after week, thank you for keeping me company. We are near the end of season 2 now, and I do not take it lightly that you keep returning to this one honest corner that we have curated in this very busy and hectic world. So before we begin, we're going to always do a little housekeeping because this community keeps growing and I want to keep building it with intention. If this show has met you somewhere, I have 3 quick asks. First, follow or subscribe wherever you are listening, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or anywhere else podcasts live. Following really is the single most powerful thing you can do to help us and help this work reach the people who need it. Second, if you are on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review with one honest sentence because reviews help new listeners decide whether or not to trust us with their time. And third, share this episode with someone who is exhausted from performing and believing and pretending to be okay, someone who looks well and does not always feel it. That is community care in action. Remember, all of our platforms are linked in the show notes. And if you are a Substack subscriber, the Substack companion to this episode is now live, and our paid subscribers will have an extended, honest inventory practice waiting for them this week, one that goes deeper than we can go here on the show. And I'll tell you more about that at the close of the episode. All right, let's get into it because this one has been one that there's been a through line and a thread, and it's been forming all season for a while. And I have a feeling that it's going to meet a lot of you where you are right now, especially the ones who have everything that you need for a healing journey, everything that a healing journey is supposed to look like, and you're still not feeling good. You're still feeling bad. And so I want to really frame and open up what this episode is going to be talking about. I want to start with something that I have been noticing for a long time now in my work, in my own life, as I travel, as I scroll every day on social media. Somewhere along the way, healing has become something that is an aesthetic, a look. It's a brand. It's a certain kind of image that we perform for one another. But the soft morning light that we see in posts on social media, the perfectly arranged journal and good pen, that green smoothie, matcha supplements lined up on your counter like soldiers, that sunrise walk that you see that has the exact right caption on social media. It's very tidy. It's a very photogenic version of a life that's supposedly being lived at peace. But what I want to say to you today, before we say anything else, that none of those things are necessarily bad. A journal is a good thing to have. I'm a proponent for that. A morning walk is a great thing. But we have to be honest about what has quietly happened underneath all of this. Looking well has slowly, almost invisibly replaced actually being well. Think about the actual experience of it. You're having a hard week, a genuinely hard week, and you open your phone and there in your social media feed is full of people who appear to have everything handled, everything under control. Everyone is glowing, they're grateful, they're doing their shadow work, cold plunges in their gratitude list and all the different things that we are now seeing that looks like they figured out something that you haven't. And so you do the thing that we have all learned to do. You feel like you need to tidy yourself up. So you post the walk, not you crying. You share the quote, not the confusion you're feeling. You perform that healed version because somewhere along the way, being a work in progress started to feel like you were falling behind. And if we're being honest, It felt like being unwell started to feel like a personal failure on your behalf, that you had to be a better version of yourself. So let's be careful here because I'm not standing here in judgment of anyone. I'm a psychologist. I love tools. I love that people are journaling and moving their bodies and paying attention to their inner lives. That's real and it matters. And I want to be clear that when I critique this, I'm not critiquing you personally. You are doing your honest best with the life that you've been given. I am critiquing the performance, the industry that profits from convincing you that your healing should be beautiful. It should be something that's purchasable and complete by now. Those are two very different things. And I need you to hear the difference because I would never want this episode to become one more voice in your head telling you that you are doing it wrong. So don't take it that way. Here is the truth I keep coming back to. You can't heal what you will not let yourself feel. And a performance, by its very nature, is not a place where you get to feel. It is a place where you get to be seen. And those are not the same thing. The gap between them is where so many of us are quietly suffering. So, this episode is for the person who has the journal and the supplements and the perfect routine, and still underneath all of that, still feel bad, cannot understand why the healing is not working, and they're confused. It is for the person who is performing healed because being honest in the process, it feels unsafe to do so. You feel exposed. You feel like something might be taken from you if you let it show. It is for the person who looks the part so well that no one, not even the people who love them, actually know how hollow they feel on the inside. If any part of that is you, I want you to settle in. This one is for you. Today, we are going to walk through 4 things. Number 1, how performing wellness actually blocks the very healing it is supposed to represent, and why, in a clinical sense, it has become a whole new kind of perfectionism. 2, the myths that keep us performing. The belief that healing looks a certain way, it moves in a straight line, it can be purchased, and the more honest reframe that actually lives underneath them. 3, what our people have always known about healing, which has never been about an aesthetic and never for an audience, and how we can reclaim that. And 4, what it looks like to practice with the eye of pause as 30 honest seconds of unperformed presence and a gentle way to take an inventory of how you actually are. This is not an episode about throwing away your journal or deleting every app. It is about something quieter and more important. It's about the difference between looking healed and being well, and about giving yourself permission to be an honest work in progress in a culture that keeps trying to sell you a finished, filtered version of a thing that was always meant to be a little messy. So let's begin. We're going to take our break and we'll be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. In this segment, we are going to talk about when wellness becomes a performance. I want to name something from a clinical standpoint because I think naming it takes some of its power away. What we are talking about today, this pressure to appear healed, to have the aesthetic and the routine and the glow, is not really, if we're honest about wellness at all. It is perfectionism wearing new clothes. It is that same old taskmaster we have always known, the one that says that you're only acceptable when you are flawless. Except now it's learned to speak the language of healing. And so it used to say you need to be productive, you need to be thin, you need to be successful. Now it says be healed, be regulated, be radiant, be doing the work and be doing it beautifully. It's the same voice, but it has new vocabulary. And here's why that matters so much. Perfectionism and healing cannot actually live in the same body. at the same time, because healing requires you to be honest. You have to be honest about what is broken, and perfectionism is going to require you to hide that. Healing asks you to sit down in the mess and feel it, and perfectionism is saying you need to stand back up, gives you a broom and tells you you need to make this place look presentable before anyone comes over. It's like when company comes over, right? So when wellness itself becomes something that you have to perform perfectly, you have set up an impossible situation for yourself, where the very thing that you would be healing, if you were honest, is the thing that you're most afraid to show. Now, let me put two more words on this table gently, because I think that they name what a lot of us are doing without realizing it. The first is spiritual bypassing. So, y'all know how I feel about this. That is when we use positivity or spirituality or language of healing itself to skip over a real feeling instead of moving through it. It sounds like everything happens for a reason, said too fast before you have to let yourself actually sit in it and grieve. It sounds like I am just choosing joy, when what you actually needed was to choose to fall apart, maybe for just an afternoon. Bypassing is not lying exactly. It is deceiving yourself. It's reaching for a higher meaning before you have actually felt the ache of what you are dealing with. And it leaves the ache unattended underneath all of that light. And I think that that's important. The second thing is toxic positivity. So you're like, how could positivity apps actually be toxic, right? Well, you know, they're kind of close cousins. Perfectionism and toxic positivity are close cousins. This is basically the pressure from the culture and eventually from inside of your own head to be relentlessly upbeat, to always find the silver lining, to treat any honest, heavy feeling as a kind of failure of mind. And I want to be careful here, because there is nothing wrong with being hopeful. There's nothing wrong with gratitude. There's nothing wrong with, you know, you saying there's going to be something better. I'm not asking you to marinate in the pain. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that when positivity becomes mandatory, when there's no room left for you to actually have a bad day, it stops being the medicine and it starts to muzzle and constrain you. It's basically teaching you that performing to be okay is so convincing that you actually lose contact with what you actually are feeling in the moment. And of course, the stage for all of this is your social media feed. The comparison is constant. It's rigged because you are comparing your unedited insides to everyone else's edited outsides. You see their sunrise, you don't see their sleepless night. You see the caption about boundaries and not the hard conversations that fell apart. And more time you spend measuring your real, messy, in progress life against a scroll of curated healing, the more you're going to be convinced that you are uniquely behind, that there's something specially broken about you. You're uniquely bad at a thing that everybody else has apparently mastered but you. That's not a personal failing. That's the predictable result of comparing yourself to a performance and forgetting that life is not a performance. I have worked with someone a while back, and of course, changing details for privacy. They came exhausted in a way that they couldn't explain on paper. They looked like the picture of wellness. They should have been okay. They had the routine. They meditated in the morning. They ate well. They were clearly in therapy. They did gratitude journaling. They filled their night with things that were positive. Everything seemed right. But yet, sitting across from me, they still did not understand why they still felt so terrible. They wanted to know what was wrong with them. And as we went through and talked through the issues that they had, it was almost as if they were saying to themselves, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. How do I get to this space where I feel the opposite of the work that I have been doing? So we got curious, right? We started working together and we started really digging into what was happening. And what we found was that the practices were not bad. They were performing every single one of them. The journal really wasn't a place of truth. It was something that they did. It was a place they wrote what a healed person was supposed to write. The meditation wasn't actually rest for them. It was just another box for them to check off because that was what they were trying to do, model perfection. They had turned their entire healing into a performance of healing, and there was no room left for their honest self to actually be tended to. Only the very tired person that was keeping up the appearances for all the people around them, that included everybody except for, painfully, themselves. So I tell you that not as a way to be clinical and diagnose, but I think so many of us are doing a quiet version of this very same thing. We have made healing one more arena to be perfect in. And the reason it doesn't work, the reason that you can do everything right and still feel hollow, is that performing wellness actively is blocking you from the real thing. You cannot feel what you're busy hiding. You cannot tend to a wound that you keep insisting is already healed. The performance uses up all the energy that you actually need to do the healing. And then we wonder why nothing is changing underneath. In the language of my book, Rooted in Resilience, this is the chapter that I call the mirror, because there are two kinds of mirrors in our lives. There's the honest mirror and the one that shows you what is actually there. It shows you the tired eyes. It shows you the real face. It shows you the truth of where you are so that you can respond to it with tenderness. And then there's that mirror that's curated, right? The one where we perform into, the one that only reflects the version we have arranged, filtered, and approved. Here is the thing about the curated mirror. You can look into it all day long and never once be seen, because it is not showing you yourself. It is showing you the performance. Healing will actually begin the moment that you're brave enough to look into the honest one. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about the myths that keep us performing. Stay tuned. Be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. And I want to jump in and name the myths directly connected to the things that keep us performing, because they run underneath this whole performance, and most of us have absorbed them without ever agreeing to them. There are a handful of quiet lies that the wellness image basically sells us. And I want to say each one out loud, and then I want to hand you something truer that I feel like you should hold instead. The first myth is that healing looks a certain way, that it is serene and soft and photogenic and it glows, right? But really, healing is often deeply ugly. It's unphotogenic. Real healing is the ugly cry in the car. It is the hard conversation where your voice is shaking. It is a third therapy session where you finally say the thing and your face is blotchy and your nose is running. It's lying on the floor because the bed felt too far away. None of that would actually make a beautiful post. And that's exactly the point. The most healing moments of our lives and the lives of the people that I have seen and sat with would look nothing like what we see online. It would be looking like you falling apart from the outside. The second myth is that healing moves in a straight line. It is either up to the right, always progress, always better than the last month. But healing is not linear, and it never has been. It circles back sometimes. It has seasons. You can do years of good work and still have a week where an old grief knocks you flat on your back. And that is not you failing, and it is not you back at the beginning. What is happening is you are going through the natural progression and cycle of healing. Regression is part of the process, not proof that the process is broken. Those hard days are not evidence that your healing is not working. Very often, the hard days are actually the healing arriving in the only form that that particular truth can take in your life. The third myth is that there's an arrival point. Like there's this finish line that's labeled healed, where you come across and you're done and your hands are in the air, you're forever fixed, right? Permanently fine. I have been doing this work for a while in others and in myself, and I have never met a finished person. And I would be a little suspicious of one if I did. There's no version of you waiting at the end who never struggles again. There's only you getting more honest and more tender with yourself over your entire lifetime. And I'm going to leave this one right here for you because I do believe it deserves room, more room than I can give it today. And it's exactly where we are headed in next week's finale episode. The fourth myth, the one I most want to name because it's the engine of an entire industry, is that healing can be purchased. That is the right program, the right retreat, the right supplement, the right $500 course will finally deliver the piece that you are missing. And listen, some of those things have real value. I am not saying never spend money on your well-being. Clearly, you're here with me. You may subscribe to my Substack. You may have purchased things from me. You may have gotten my book. All of this is a reflection of tools that are part of the journey of your healing. But the culture has sold us the idea that our healing is a product problem, that we're simply one purchase away, one journal away, and it keeps us perpetually reaching for the next thing because a healed customer is not a repeat customer. The deepest healing I know cannot be bought. It happens in honest relationship, in the body, in the quiet, in community, in the free and unglamorous work of feeling what is true. So here is the reframe that I want to offer you, and I want you to actually take this in. Real healing is unphotogenic, nonlinear, embodied, messy, and every bit of that is not a sign that you're doing it wrong. I would say it is what doing it right actually looks like. You do not have to be healed to be worthy of love. You do not have to be regulated to deserve rest. You don't have to arrive to be allowed to stop performing. Simply be where you are. The mess is not a disqualifier. The mess is actually a doorway. In the book, I call this chapter the disruption because sometimes the most healing thing that you can do is an honest break in their performance. A moment where the curated version basically cracks and the true version actually gets in. The disruption is the day you finally admit you are not okay. It is the mask slipping in front of someone safe. It is the sob you could not hold back, the confession that surprised even you. We spend so much energy trying to prevent the disruption to keep the performance seamless, and yet the disruption is so often the beginning of the real thing. You are stopping yourself right before you get to that breakthrough. It is the truth interrupting that image that you have been holding so you could get to what you said you really were trying to reach. So don't be afraid of the crack. The crack is not actually damage in this case. The crack is an opening. It is where something real can finally get in, and it's also where you can finally get out. So let's take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what our people knew about healing. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. And I want to widen the lens the way that we often do on this show. I don't want you to think that honest, unperformed healing is something new that I'm inventing or that we are inventing. It is not new. It is ours. And it is ours as much as the wellness industry tries to sell it back to us as a premium. Our people were already doing this freely in the body and together. And the reason why I say that is because oftentimes a lot of the things that we have created, that we have spearheaded, has been taken, repackaged, and tried to be presented as if it were something new. And we know that we have been the innovators of pretty much a lot of things that we see in the world today. In West African traditions and across the spiritual life of the African diaspora, healing was not an aesthetic. It was never a solo performance. It always embodied everyone. It was communal. Think about the laying on of hands, the actual physical touch that carried care from one body to another. There's no filter between them. Think about the elders in the community with their remedies. Think about your grandmother and all the things that she said you should take when you're sick. The ones that never wrote things down, that tea that they made, the way that they rubbed your back, the song that they hummed while they did it. Think about the kitchen table wisdom that they gave us, the healing that happened over a pot on the stove, our elders talking, truth getting told, no one performing anything. Everybody was just being real in a room that felt warm. That was the medicine, and it did not cost a thing but being present. Think about church. Think about call and response, the way one voice would cry out and a whole room would answer, so that no one had to carry their feelings alone, so that grief and praise moved through the body and out into the community that caught it. Think about grief rituals. Our people kept them, the ones that gave you permission to wail out loud, to fall out, to be held by many hands while you came undone. I often say that we are very dramatic people, but there is a purpose behind that drama. There's a healing in that drama. It's something that's ugly and undone, but it's impactful and it works. Our ancestors did not perform being okay. They did not tidy their grief into a caption. They wept together. They did it in the body. They did it in the open with others. And then they carried it home. There was nothing photogenic about it. There was nothing lonely about it either. Can you feel the difference? Our inherited healing was done in a body and done together out loud without an audience to impress, because the people around you were not an audience. They were just your people. The healer was not a brand that you follow. The healer was rooted in the community. They were known and knowable, and someone who ate at the same tables and buried the same dead. Healing was not content. It was communion. And I have to name what has happened since. Clearly, I'm going to say it gently, but I got to say it plain, because it's part of why so many of us feel locked up. A commodified wellness industry has taken practices that were once communal and free, our breath, our movement, our herbs, our stillness, and packaged them up, priced them, and then they try to sell them back to us, often at a cost that our communities cannot afford. The very people, us, whose ancestors held this wisdom, are now told that wellness is a luxury. It's a subscription. It's a boutique studio membership. It's a thing for those who can afford the aesthetic. That is a kind of theft, and that's being kind. And I want to name it as one, not to make you bitter, but to set you free from the idea that you need to buy your way back to something that is and has always been your birthright. In the book, again, this chapter is called The Soil. It's reclaiming wellness our way. And I chose that image on purpose because I want you to think about where the actual work of growing is happening. It's not in the part of you that people can see. It's happening underground, in the dark, in that slow, unglamorous place where the roots are pushing out into the ground, and someone has to tend to them long before you will see what is going to become. No one photographs the soil. Who's taking pictures of dirt, right? No one builds a following on a root system. And yet nothing stands above the ground without standing on the roots. That is what your healing is. It is not the part that shows, it is the part that actually holds things together. Your healing is meant to grow like that. Not as a thing you display, but as a thing that takes hold in you because you were tended in the body, in community, in truth. You do not owe anyone the aesthetic of your recovery. You are allowed to heal quietly, unphotographed, underground, being held together by the real hands of your community, the way our people always did. So we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we are going to get into the practice and Aya pause for this episode. We will be back in just a second. Welcome back, everyone. So let's talk about what to actually do, because as always, I never want to leave you with a beautiful idea, flushing things out, and no way for you to actually live it. The foundation, as always on this show, is the Aya pause. If you are new here, the Aya pause is not a break that you earn. You don't earn it after you're finally healed or done enough work. It is a breath that you take on purpose in the middle of your chaotic life that is trying to make you perform. It is 3 breaths and a return to what is true. And for everything we have been talking about today, the Aya pause is exactly, I feel, the antidote, because it's an unperformed presence. It is 30 honest seconds with no audience, no filter, no caption. No one is watching you. There is nothing to arrange. It's just you. You're telling yourself the truth about how you actually are. Here is how you will take one. Wherever you are, put your feet flat on the floor, sit up straight in your chair. One hand can be on your chest, one hand on your belly, if you can. If you're listening in the car, please be safe. Breathe in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 6. Let the exhale run a little longer than the inhale, because that is actually the breath that is going to tell your nervous system that it is safe for you to come down. On your first breath, I want you to notice where you are. On the second breath, I want you to notice the body that is doing the noticing. So notice your actual physical body, not the one that you put in pictures and not the ones that you post. And on that third breath, let one true thing rise up, whatever it actually is, inside of you without dressing it up to be more beautiful and presentable than it actually is. That is the Aya pause. 30 seconds, and it is a whole practice in miniature, presence without performance. Now, on top of that foundation, I want to give you 2 practices for this week. I'm going to limit it to 2. Let's keep it simple, but keep it honest. The first I call the honest inventory. Once a day, you're going to take the Aya pause and then ask yourself one plain question. How am I actually? Not how it looks, not how I would caption it, not the healed sounding version, just the true one. And then name it. Name it plainly, name it kindly to yourselves. I am tired. I am scared about this thing. I am grieving and I have not wanted to admit it. I am actually okay today, and that is real too. There's no wrong answer to this, because this is not a test. There's no answer key. The whole point is contact with the real you, the one underneath the performance. I want you to say it as gently as you would say it to a friend, because actually harshness is just perfectionism trying to sneak itself back in. This is not a place to scold yourself for not being further along. It is a place to finally tell yourself the truth, and I want you to stay tender while you do it. The second practice has 2 small parts, and it's about protecting the honest self you just made contact with. The second part is to kind of curate your inputs just for this week. Notice what you're taking in, the accounts, the feeds, the corners of the scroll that consistently make healing look like a performance. The ones that leave you feeling like you're falling behind and are broken and not enough. I want you to step back from them. Either mute them, unfollow them if you need to, put the phone in the other room for a stretch of your day. You are not required to keep watching a performance that makes your real life feel like a failure. Protecting your inputs is not avoidance. It is tending the soil so something honest can grow with it. The second part is to choose one act of embodied non-aesthetic care, not the kind that you would take a picture of and photograph, the kind that nobody will ever see. Drink that glass of water. Take that nap that you have been performing your way out of. I love me a good nap. Cry if the tears are there. Call the friend and tell them the untidied truth. Put your bare feet on the actual ground. Stretch your tired back. Sit out in the sun for 10 minutes with no caption forming in your head. Embodied care is the healing our people always knew, the kind that happens in the body and asks for no audience. Choose one and let that one be enough. And then one last thing that I think is a small thing. I want you to write yourself a permission slip. It can be one sentence. It says, I have permission to be a work in progress. I have permission to be unwell today and still be worthy. I have permission to heal slowly, quietly, out of order. I want you to write it. You can write it on your hand, put it where you will see it. I like to put things on my refrigerator, and let it be the thing that answers the performance every time it starts up again. Do you hear how these things fit together? How the honest inventory brings you back to the mirror, the true one, where you can finally see how you actually are. You're curating your inputs, you're choosing embodied care, you're creating the disruption, which is that honest break in the performance that's allowing the real things to come in. And then you're giving yourself a permission slip. The willingness to be a work in progress is what lets you actually finally bloom quietly in your own season and time. You're tending to it rather than displaying it. This is not about rejecting every good practice that you may have built over time. It is about making sure that there's an honest version of you at the center of all of this work that you're doing. One who is actually being healed and not merely being seen. That's the practice. That's the I of pause, is what we say. It's the I away. Every day, do your 30 unperformed seconds. Make sure you're doing the honest inventory of how you truly are, a gentle curating of what you're letting in, one act of care that no one will ever see, and giving yourself that permission slip to be gloriously you and gloriously human. Not the perfect healing, but the honest one. So before I let you go, I want to ask you one question, and I don't want you to answer it quickly. I always say this when I ask these questions at the end of the episode, because I really want you to put thought into it. I want you to let it sit, and maybe when you do your first honest inventory, you'll be able to have an answer to this question. But you've been performing wellness instead of living it. If an answer rises up inside of you right away, be tender with it, because it probably took a lot of courage for yourself to allow that to rise. And if the question makes something tighten in you, if the very idea of setting the performance down feels scary and frightening, like you might disappear or be found out, then that is not a failure. That is information, and it's necessary. It means that that performance has been protecting something that's soft on the inside, and that soft thing is allowed to be tended to. It's allowed to be held gently, and it's allowed to make its way to the surface with support that you need. So to the one that looks healed but feels hollow, I see you today. You have done everything right and you are still hurting. And the answer is not that you need to try harder or perform better. The answer might actually be that it is finally safe for you to stop performing. Let yourself feel the thing that your routine has been so busy covering up. You're not broken. You have just been very tired from holding it all together. To the one exhausted from performing being okay, I see you as well. You are allowed to put it down. You do not owe the world this glowing, grateful, regulated version of yourself every single day. You're allowed to be honestly unwell and still be deeply worthy of love and rest and gentleness. The mask that you're carrying and wearing is heavy. You can set it down here. To the one who believes that they're behind, this is your invitation. There is no line that says you're behind, because healing is not a race. It's not linear. You are exactly where you need to be. A real, honest, in progress human being. You are allowed to be that. You're not late. You're not lost. You are simply becoming. And in your own season and at the precise time for you, something amazing will bloom. Here is what I want you to take with you this week. 1, looking well is not the same as being well. And the gap between them is where so much quiet suffering actually lives. 2, performing wellness is perfectionism in new clothes. And it is actually blocking the healing because you cannot heal what you will not let yourself feel. 3, real healing is unphotogenetic, non-linear, embodied, and often messy. And none of that means that you're doing it wrong. You do not have to be healed to be worthy of love and of rest. 4, are people healed in the body and in the community out loud and without an audience? And that inheritance is yours to reclaim. No purchase required, nothing to be bought. 5, make sure you practice the eye of pause every day. Take one honest inventory of how you actually are, protect your inputs, choose one act of unseen care, and give yourself written permission to be a work in progress. You do not have to do this alone. The Substack companion for this episode, like I said, is live. Our paid subscribers have an extended honest inventory practice this week, a guided way to tell yourself the truth and tenderness and set their performance down. Remember, the Aya Circle is something that this community is creating. And I also want to open it up for those of you who want to do work in your local area. More information will be coming to you about this in the future on how we can get together so we can heal honestly too. Everything is going to be available to you and linked in the show notes. If this episode met you somewhere, share it with one person, just one person this week who looks like they look well, but they're quietly struggling. Sometimes the most healing thing that we can hand each other is the permission to be unfinished and to be ugly. So next week is our season finale for season 2, episode number 40. And it is the one this whole season has kind of been walking toward. And the title of the episode is Healing, because again, we're talking about healing. It is called Healing is Liberation, what it means to come home to yourself. Because healing is a liberating process, and we're going to talk about that. So after all of this honest, unphotogenic, unperformed work that we are going to talk about in this episode, we are going to get into what it means to finally allow yourself to be able to come home. We want you to be free. We want you to belong fully to yourself. And I would be honored if you would stick around with me to close out this season. So as I always say, thank you for joining me. Thank you for spending your time in this space that we are curated together. And until then, I want you to breathe slow, take your eye of pause, and at least once this week, make sure that you set down the performance and allow yourself to be the unfiltered, unedited version of you. Continue to come back to this space as we heal loudly and we live softly together. I'm Dr. Malaika. I'm your host of the IOA podcast. And until next week, have a great rest of your week.